Hey, Soul Tribe. I think we're live. And I'm here with Sharmila, who I invited to have a conversation. Let's just double check that we're live both on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, it's moving.
Okay, good. So today's conversation, I do these Liberated Love Livestreams, and I was getting bored talking to the great void. So we were having a really juicy conversation yesterday, and I thought, hey, let's just share it with the world. And you probably know me as, relationship aficionado. And I was going to introduce Sharmila as a relationship expert. But I asked her, I said, how should I introduce you? She's like, not as an expert.
Not of any kind.
But there's some expertise that comes with the last 6 years of our being in a polyamorous, network, like really being in a deep emotional, romantic connection. But that includes her beloved, her nesting partner, James, and my partner and our family together. And so there's been a lot to navigate that. And beyond the 6 years of our partnership, we've been in this really pioneering tribe of relationship explorers. And part of what makes our exploration pioneering is that we're always evolving, on the cutting edge, like changing. Every one of us is committed to personal growth. And Sharma yesterday proposed this topic. What were we?
It's about the idea of making space for your partner to become who they're becoming. Like, to make space in yourself and in your relationship for every person to evolve.
Yeah, and we were, looking at, not only how much we've changed in the last 6 years of knowing each other and dancing together, but like all of our relationships. Today happens to be my son's 15th birthday. So there's some poetry to being like, how do you stay present for his blood family as they change and grow every year? Mm-hmm. And that tends to be where we regress the most, is like,
sure,
our parents and siblings are like, oh, I know you, I remember when, and you're like, but that's not me anymore. Yeah. And we can do that in our partnership too. Like, we can
sure.
kind of like call back to, especially as a relationship coach, when people are always saying like, how do I hearken back to the honeymoon? How do I want things to be like that? And it's like, actually, no, you don't. You don't want to be with that person. And maybe you do, but that person in the beginning might not have been their full expression. That might have been some fantasy of who you wanted to be with, as opposed to who you've gotten to know over time.
I mean, that's more than likely true. Like, you make up an idea of who a person is when you meet them and just run with it in your imagination.
And there are times when, you're with someone and their growth is so radical and in a different direction than your own values. And so it's scary to allow your partner to grow, because the fear is, what if they outgrow me, or we outgrow each other? Or so allowing your partner to grow is actually inherently vulnerable.
Well, and I think that's part of what actually creates stagnation in most longer term relationships, is that people are afraid to do something that doesn't fit with their partner. Like, they're afraid to go out and do the hobbies that don't fit with them, or have friendships that the partner doesn't like, or any of those things, because it might cause a rift. It might cause separation. And so people become stagnant, and parts of themselves become unexpressed. And then eventually they start to go look for a way to express those pieces. And it usually ends up involving another partner. And if you're in a polyamorous relationship, sometimes that's workable and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, there's a huge tendency, even in our early formation as children, to say, ooh, I just want to do the things that gets love and approval from the people, I need love and approval from my family. And then we go from that kind of emotional adolescence of, I have to be a certain way to be accepted in the family. We bring that adolescence into partnership, and then the growth can plateau. So one of the deep values in the culture of our soul tribe is personal growth. And and spiritual growth, like beyond personal, like this evolutionary growth towards a soul culture. And that inherently asks that we say, let's, when you start a partnership, it's not to confine someone to who they are, but it's to say, how can I support your evolution?
And, where possible, where can we evolve together? And if our evolution is not with each other, I support that too. Like really making space for my highest intention is your evolution and my evolution into who we're supposed to be. And we'd love to do that together.
Yeah.
How do we support that, but also keep space?
Yeah. And this is really relevant right now. We've got a printer that's going off in the house. But, I've been on a gender journey. And, when we, it's been 6 years, but when we were starting off, it's like that, the degree of my hermaphroditic expression was not even on the map really.
No.
And then as that's been evolving for me just recently, like one of your New Year's resolutions was to support me more with my pronouns. But it really feels like there's been a we're having to have these conversations.
Yeah, I think that's part of where the conversation started, is like how do we stay current with each other and be really intimate with the evolution that our partners are having in a way that we can support it and celebrate it and be triggered by it, but just be real with where it is and what's happening in a way that you have the opportunity to show up in it as opposed to not knowing it's even happening.
And how's it been for you personally
in relationship with you and your gender? I think it's been really relatively smooth. It's not something that triggers me in any way. So it's been a fun exploration of watching you kind of test out your own edges and feel yourself in it and be like, okay, that's right, no, that's not right. And it gives me an opportunity to explore those parts of myself, even though they don't come up for me the same way.
Beautiful. Yeah. And of course it's, we're taking a topic that isn't triggering.
Right. For sure.
Maybe we should talk about something that is, but I will say that my gender journey and exploration with testosterone has been edgy for other partners, and what does that mean about our polarity, or what does that, and so for them to be present, it's harder for me in those partnerships to actually bring it up and to talk about the inner matters of my heart and fears I have, because I'm afraid of triggering them. And there's a real ease in our connection. Yeah. Are there any areas that have been harder in our evolution? And as you think about that, I am just going to check here, because I am saying hi to a lot of beloveds who I see are online. And so I'm looking actually, okay, so we've got Instagram and Facebook streaming. And what's so fascinating, I just learned this for the first time, you pointed out, is that the reflection that you get on Facebook is different than Instagram as a mirror difference. How do you describe it?
Well, my mole is on different sides on each screen is basically how I describe it. But yeah, so one is a mirror reflection and one is actually how you look. So it's,
Yeah, so on Facebook, is that how you look in the mirror? When you look, no,
Instagram's how I look in the mirror.
And then Facebook's how other people see
yes.
you. And I was like, wow, we've got both represented right here, which is, shamanically, symbolically like a relationship. It's like there's the way that you see yourself, and then there's the way your partners see you.
Right.
And part of the evolution and part of what we're talking about is how do we close that gap? So there's not a big...
Put my mole on my nose.
Close the gap. It's a little Picasso-esque. But we want I really strive to recognize myself in your reflection. The people that are nearest and dearest to me, I want the way that they see me to be congruent with the way I see myself. Otherwise, I'm either deluding myself or they've got some story about me. And, so that's the essence of what we're talking about.
Right. So, like, the thing that comes up that you're like, hey, what has been, like, harder, or I actually feel like it's been less about your journey and more about how you bring me into it. Mm-hmm. Like, there have been certain parts, like, as you're discovering for yourself, in a very natural way, you kind of keep them more to yourself because you haven't figured them out yet. And I have found that harder to navigate. It's like, I want to be in it and understand it, and you're not necessarily in a place where you can articulate it or are ready to have someone else in that inner space. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that's necessarily a trigger. That's just been a little harder for me to navigate than, like, the times that you're ready, like, here's how I'm feeling and here's how I'm seeing myself, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's really, you can cross-apply that to human growth. Like, mm-hmm. when we grow, there's a lot of times when something's shifting in the inner landscape, mm-hmm. and we don't even know how to articulate it. And there's a way in which it's like, I don't know how to see myself, and how do I tell my partners that something's adjusting? And mm-hmm. so creating spaces for exploration mm-hmm. is so important. And this is the how-to piece. Like, I would say you create such a space for me to, like, just be the work in progress, mm-hmm. and to just hear me as I'm in my messy, and listen to, what's, where are you at now, mm-hmm. as opposed to, like, being like, I need you to be who you used to be so that I can feel congruent with our identity,
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take us a moment and just say hello, Clara. And I see...
I saw Marina for a second.
Hi, Marina. Actually, Marina's partner, Greg, went surfing with my husband and my little boy this morning. And Devin... He's
not little. He's 15.
He's 15. Devin broke a surfboard today on his birthday. It's a big rite of passage, his first surfboard. So I'm seeing a lot of beautiful people that I know and love. Thank you. And what I'm wanting is to hear from someone on Facebook.
What's behind the screen?
That's... No? Okay. So, there it is. Yeah. So Corey, hi honey. Okay, so just getting the video is going in and out. Okay, so I get the feedback that I needed. All right, well, we're doing the best we can. But if you do have any questions, or you want to challenge us with any, thoughts, or want to contribute to the conversation, I'd love to hear it. I will say. So, you love someone and sacrifice your own voice. A light rope that can be very challenging. A tightrope. Tightrope is challenging. So, so we have a practice, of mm-hmm. like creating space, and it often has to do with, like, giving basically a dyad of, like, tell me what you want to tell me. Giving each other space to really take turns, mm-hmm. listen without crosstalk, and that allows for the exploration.
Yeah, it's like sharing the vulnerable parts, but in a containered way that makes them less scary, because there isn't crosstalk. There's just, like, a thank you at the end of somebody sharing, and so it gives you an opportunity to feel it, and for your partner to feel it and take it in. And that doesn't mean there can't be more conversation about it later, but it doesn't come, like, when it's coming out vulnerably, there's nothing coming back at you.
Yeah. When we do share something vulnerable and the partner's having a reaction, and we're having a reaction to their reaction, it's just like this ping pong that just goes back and forth, and it really becomes like a downward spiral that makes it less safe the next time you want to share something vulnerable.
But I want to say something about sacrificing yourself for your partner, because I think if we're doing it right, and obviously right is a very, like, edgy word, but, like, I don't know that being with reality and being with what's true should require sacrifice from either person. And so I feel like the tightrope to walk is really being with what is right relationship, what's right for both of you, and finding that place where if something's really not right for you, it's not right for your partner either. Like, it might mean that you and your partner aren't right for each other, but, like, if it's like, there shouldn't have to be this place of, I'm going to do something bad for me to do something good for you. Like, I don't know if you have more to say on that.
we're getting into the intricacies of codependence,
Right.
which is essentially this, like, I need to be this for you, and then I'm sacrificing my essence. And then, what we're actually, when I mentioned soul culture, like, a big part of what we're talking about, not just in this partnership, but our whole, soul family, is how do we support each other's, like, evolving and growing. And that may genuinely mean that they're evolving and growing in a direction that isn't necessarily our full expression. So there's there's not an attachment to our partners being what we need them to be, what our personalities need them to be in order to have a certain identity. And, these concepts, although it might sound, like philosophical, like, when the rubber hits the road, it's really challenging and real. I mean, I will bring up one of the more challenging conversations that we had, which was when I was, in my own gender exploration, I was really feeling into, I don't feel like I'm a girlfriend, right? So we've been, like, how do you, when you have the relationship defining conversation, you're like, oh, we're no longer just lovers, because I have lots of lovers.
Right.
And Sharmila is like, and we're girlfriends. And that gave a sense of specialness above, like, all the different lovers and play, partners. And
I like to be special.
Yeah, of course. And so, like, for years we were like, yeah, she's my girlfriend, and it actually was, that was a challenging conversation with Roxanne, being like, wait, you're girlfriends? Like, we're girlfriend, like, there's a whole, like, well, what is special?
Right.
And so,
like, she's not girlfriends the way I'm girlfriends. Like, that's different.
and for Roxanne, she was like, I want you to be in your full expression. I want to support that. Right. And I have to let go of something, and so there was a process there, especially because Roxanne and Sharmila are, like, we're best friends and are still
for years,
much longer than I've even known Sharmila. And so that, that was a whole process. But then after years of hard-earned, like, we found a stable, like, relationship definition, I was like, I don't feel like a girl. That doesn't express me. That doesn't feel true.
Gender transcendent relationship partner.
Yeah. Which is, fertile grounds for all kinds of jokes. But it's still true. And then there's this way in which she uses that, because it's resonant for her. And I say, I just say, my beloved, and it might feel like less special, but it's more true for me.
I'm like, everybody's your beloved. What about me?
And relationship defining conversations are moments in which we say, hey, something's evolving for one or both of us, and how do we show up to that conversation, know that it may be hard, feel with our partners whatever we need to feel, but still stay true to what's our soul's expression. Yeah.
And, like, making space for that. Like, like, it's not, talking about the sacrifice. Like, you don't just go with, for me, I want to be girlfriends, because that's not true for you. Like, that doesn't acknowledge your full expression, And, like, I'm not just like, okay, well, then I guess that's not important. Like, there's not really a sacrifice that's happening on either side. It's a navigation, and we haven't necessarily found our way all the way through it. Yeah. But it's not, oh, well, if that's what's important for you, then I'll just, like, let go of my part. It's like, no, the feelings I have are real. Yeah. The feelings you have are real. How do we find right relationship in that?
Yeah, and it's
how do you handle when your partner brings someone into the container who's not willing to acknowledge you? Not well. Don't handle it well. I would say that, like, everyone has their own agreements in their relationship, but in my primary relationship, if someone's unwilling to acknowledge me or work in the boundaries of what we created and agreed upon, they're not the right match. And that doesn't mean that, like, we can't work with them and, like, hear where they're coming from and slowly evolve into that. But in my, like I said, my personal primary relationship, like it's for the person who's bringing the person in to make sure that the new partner really gets what they're coming into.
And you're operating within a primary paradigm.
Yes.
So it's like, which I am as well. I have a husband, and a lot of people who do multiple relationships don't want hierarchy, and they don't want to say, hey, I've got this pre-established ecology. They just want to have, and bringing somebody into a ecology like that is delicate and does require a sensitivity to what that is. But if somebody's like, I don't want to be in a garden, I want to be free to roam outside of those bounds, and I don't want to participate in having one partner meet the other and acknowledge that, that's a different kind of relating style than what we've been cultivating. Right.
And that's part of your agreements.
Yeah.
If it's part of your agreements that, hey, you are who you are, you see who you see, then it's what you're signing up for. And if it's, you have an agreement and you have some sort of boundaries of like, hey, this is how I need to feel honored in relationship. Again, it's a navigation. It's not.
And it's delicate because there are times when, like with my primary partner, so Michael has had deep connections with people who are relationship anarchists and aren't interested in definitions or aren't interested in. But there's a way in which it will only, he has to show up congruently as, I'm a married man and I've got a family, and this is part of who I am. And as long as he's got me in his heart and knows his priorities, then I'm comfortable with whatever engagement he has with someone who doesn't. It's not that they don't. Yeah, who doesn't want to connect with me or doesn't recognize me. And by the way, there are people that I'm not super interested in cultivating a big relationship with. There's partners and playmates that my husband's had that I might not
that connect with very easily.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, cool. As long as it's working for you and it's enhancing to you and it's not taking from us, then we can work it out.
I think it's about being in relationship with reality. It's like if you have a nesting partnership and you there are ways you show up to what that is. And if somebody's unwilling to show up to what is, it's going to be very hard to navigate.
If you're denying, a previously existing relationship, it's going to collapse.
Yeah.
Eventually. It's a good question, Clara. Thank you. All right. So I know we're going to be wrapping up here soon, and I wanted to see if there were any other questions, but as we feel into the topic of evolving relationships, is there anything you really want to share? Corey's in relationship with reality. Good, Corey.
Good job.
Yeah, I think there's being in relationship with what is, and there's also I want to say being in relationship with love. Because really, and this is kind of my summation of what we're talking about at a deeper metaphysical level. I know that as much as I love Sharmila, the person, and all of your personal growth, and I love watching how you evolve and what challenges you, but there's a deeper love that we both share, and that is for something that's bigger than Sharmila, the person. And there's a way in which, we're both in relationship to love, and so is James and Michael and all of our other beloveds, and that's what makes this evolution possible. Whereas if we were in love and attached to, for example, Roxanne being my only girlfriend, we wouldn't have evolved into the new place that we are now. And by the way, she just had her birthday. My son's birthday and Roxanne's birthday are the same month apart. Yeah, and so it's really sweet to to have those rituals. Birthdays are wonderful examples of who are you now and what's expressing through your soul in this cycle, and to just stay connected to the the person becoming.
Well, and I think part of the idea of this talk was what are ideas that help that? And I think one of those is the concept of getting out of relationship like with the personality and getting into relationship with each other's souls and expression, like being in love with like what the person is supposed to do in the world, and being in love with like the deeper essence that moves them, as opposed to, well, but you didn't call me your girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like there's little things that the personality can get hooked in for sure, but if that's the way you see the relationship, then it's going to be a lot of heads butting and a lot of arguing back and forth, as opposed to, I love your expression, I love your evolution, and that you are becoming someone who's transcending gender. Mm-hmm. And so the part of my personality that's hurt has space to be like, but is that what I find most important?
Yeah, and if what's most important is in the, in the realm of identity, it has an expiration date. Like, okay, and that is going to be outgrown, and it's going to be painfully outgrown if you're still holding on to it, or it can be a trust fall into a mysterious new way of being. Mm-hmm. All right, beautiful. Well, it's been a pleasure having you. And I want to encourage extra acknowledgement and validation, because I'm really always touched whenever I have these conversations with Sharmila. She brings new insights, she inspires me, and she's often very
hated.
Yeah, there's a veiled aspect of her, and this is a big coming out for her to actually say yes to doing a live stream, and I want to encourage more of that. And I also want to say that there's like, as much as we don't do it for the people's accolades, there's something around giving you permission to show up messy and unrehearsed, and to show up as you are. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay, blessings.
There's another button over.
Okay, and this one ends with this button, I'm guessing?
I'm not sure. I haven't done this before.
Okay, so I'm gonna
go with guess with that. Yeah, and